I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. In areas prone to disasters, this House believes that states should prioritize disaster mitigations over relocation. 18th of May 2026, me and my friends learned about the definition regarding hazards, vulnerability, capacity, and most importantly, mitigation. Nowadays, disasters are very common among countries worldwide, which leads to the suffering of citizens and breakage of facilities. To help them recover from these atrocities, governments usually give out aid, and sometimes volunteer groups find a way to help them by starting a GoFundMe, building shelters, and also helping where the catastrophe happened. A lot of the people who were subjected to the impact and disasters are in desperate need of help from people all over the world. However, sometimes governments fail to help and contribute more, especially third world countries. However, these actions are mostly reactive and do not solve the problem. What does this topic mean? It means that the only effective way to ensure people in disaster-prone areas can continue to live safely and comfortably is by prioritizing disaster mitigations, where the government invests in preventive measures, stronger facilities and infrastructure, early warning systems, and preparedness programs, and so on, rather than relying on relocation, which forces people to leave their homes and move elsewhere. What do we mean by this disaster mitigation? In this motion is all preventative actions taken by the government, such as building stronger infrastructure, improving early warning systems, and so on, which is to reduce the impact of disasters before they happen. And what we mean by relocation is the process of moving people permanently from their disaster-prone areas to safer places, which often involves leaving their homes and family and rarely finding their new opportunities. In our case, we care more about mitigation over relocation, which means relocation is still possible, but not really good enough and not effective, and won't be the main focus of the topic that we're talking today. My parameter is third world countries. Why? Because we believe third world countries are more vulnerable to disasters due to the lack of knowledge, resources, and money and infrastructure, which leads to countries often suffering great damages, which leads to citizens losing most of their childhood homes, which leads to people losing their work, which leads to people losing their belongings and important stuff, and so on. In this explanation, prioritizing mitigation becomes more important because relocation is often way more costly and hard and disturbs communities who work as farmers, fishermen, and so on. Additionally, even with limited resources, governments can still implement basic efforts such as community education, early warning symptoms, improvement on infrastructure, and education on types of disasters such as tsunamis or mountain eruptions, and so on. Our goal for the topic today as the government side is to prioritize people who are suffering because of the loss of their homes, works, and belongings, while also finding an alternative instead of relocation. Why? Because we believe everyone has the fundamental right to education and being comfortable and safe and having a place where they would be comfortable, where they would want to live. My first argument to this motion is, why is relocation not a really effective solution for third world countries, especially those who do rely on their local environment for work, for homes, for shelters, and so on? A. Relocation is not really an effective way because third world countries highly depend on their local resources and environment for their work, their houses, their foods, their incomes, and so on. B. Because many people in third world countries work as either fishermen, farmers, tractors and builders, and so on, and small local business owners whose income usually relies on their surroundings environment, such as seas, forests, farms, and so on. When they are relocated to a more city and urban place, they lose their access to their resources of income, which leads to poverty, lack of social network and income. As a result, instead of solving the problem, relocation gives new economic and social breakage to the communities that live around seas, around mountains and farms, and so on. C. For example, areas in Indonesia around Mountain Merapi, the people and the community there, they decide to refuse to relocate for permanently even after eruptions have happened and have caused breakage in their homes, facilities, their farms, and so on, because their incomes are usually around the areas of their homes. Similar to communities who live near the ocean. Moving near a more landlocked place would take their ability to fish and find food and find incomes for their families and for their friends. So, what does this mean? It means that doing relocation is sometimes not a more effective solution for third world countries because we do not rely on heavy exports and imports, and we usually do economic transactions by the country itself. So it's not really very effective for third world countries to do relocation instead of mitigation, while governments can help the people in third world countries thrive more. My second argument to this topic is, why is the government responsibility to prioritize mitigation instead of relocation? A. It is the priority of the government to choose and prioritize mitigation instead of relocation because it is their duty to protect citizens without disturbing their way of life and comfortably without disturbance, and communities can have a more stability in their places. B. Because government is responsible for ensuring public safety. Relocation forces citizens to leave their homes, their friends, their family, and everyone else, which creates problems like poverty, unemployment, and so on. In contrast, mitigation allows the government to reduce disasters risks while people can still live and work in their own places. In Indonesia, the government builds flood control systems, evacuation routes, and early warning signs instead of relocating entire cities like Jakarta, which is a very populated area besides Papua and some other places, because they care about the citizens' well-being and opportunities. Lastly, it proves that prioritizing mitigation fulfills the government's responsibility more, which leads to preserving their social and economic well-being. Therefore, I think prioritizing mitigation instead of relocation is a very more effective way for third world countries, because the lack of resources and knowledge and so on can kind of prevent the countries from helping the citizens thrive more and building them a safety place where they can feel comfortable. Thank you.